Having a business meeting. The committee's first agenda item is H.R. 3243, legislation to promote flexibility in work arrangements and scheduling for federal firefighters. H.R. 3243 was introduced by Representative John Sarbanes, Democrat, Maryland, on July the 16th, 2009. The bill was forwarded by the Federal Workforce Subcommittee by voice vote and on May 27, 2010. H.R. 3243 allows federal firefighters to trade shifts without triggering mandatory overtime payments and added costs for their agency. The bill simply allows traded time to be excluded from the calculation of overtime. This grants more leave flexibility to these workers without costing the government any money. The change is consistent with the workplace practices of State and municipal fire departments across the country. Under the bill, any decision approved, the workers' request to switch shifts will remain at the discretion of the employing agency. Trade time will boost Federal agencies' ability to recruit and retain trained firefighters. I support the bill and yield to the ranking member for any comments he may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a good, non-controversial, well-worked-out bill that corrects a technical problem that has existed for our Federal firefighters that we support on a bipartisan basis. And yield back.
If no other members seek recognition, I now call up H.R. 3243.
H.R. 3243, a bill to amend Section 5.
I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered as read and open for amendments at any point without objection. So ordered. Hearing no amendments, the question is on agreeing to H.R. 3243 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 3243 as amended is agreed to, and without objection, H.R. 3243 as amended is ordered reported favorably to the House. Next, we have H.R. 5367 was introduced by Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton of the District of Columbia on May 24th. The bill makes a number of administrative and legislative changes to improve the operation of the D.C. courts and the Public Defender Service of the District. With the passage of Revitalization Act in 1997, the Federal Government assumed budgetary and legislative responsibility for some district offices, such as the D.C. courts and the Public Defender Service. The Revitalization Act grants to Congress the exclusive authority to amend Title 11 of D.C. Code related to the D.C. courts and related agencies. H.R. 5367 would give the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals the ability to hold a judicial conference which is required by statute biennially or annually. The Chief Judge would also be able to require local magistrates judges to attend. H.R. 5367 also authorizes the Chief Judge of the Superior Court and the Court of Appeals to delay or toll various deadlines in the event of a natural disaster, terrorist attack, or other related emergency situation. The bill would also authorize the D.C. courts to enter into agreement for reimbursement for services provided by the District of Columbia. This provision will allow coordination of services at the administrative function among district agencies, which will help promote efficiency and ensure the proper allocation of resources. Lastly, H.R. 5367 would allow the Public Defender Service for the District of Columbia to purchase professional liability insurance for the attorneys, staff, and board members out of their existing salaries and expense accounts. This is already standard practice for other Federal public defenders with the Federal Criminal Justice Act. I encourage all members to support this good government measure, which will improve the management and efficiency of the courts and public defender's office in the District of Columbia. I now yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from California, the ranking member, for any comments that he might have in reference to this bill.
Mr. Chairman, with our longstanding support for home rule, I support 5367 and its goals. We recognize that this bill has not officially been scored by CBO and promise to work on such amendments as may be necessary should it be scored or to find those funds otherwise, and yield back.
If any other members seeking recognition, I now call up H.R. 5367. The clerk will read the bill, the title of the bill.
H.R. 5367, a bill to amend Title 11, District of Columbia Official
I
Code.
ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered as read and open for amendments at any point without objection. So ordered. I have a manager's amendment at the desk, and the clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5367, offered by Mr. Towns.
I
Strike.
ask unanimous consent that the amendment be considered as read and considered base text. Without objections, the amendment is considered as read, and I recognize myself for a few minutes to speak on the amendment. The amendment would add language to reduce the required term of service for judges in the Family Court Division of the Superior Court of the District from 5 years to 3 years. This change was requested by Chief Judge of the Superior Court. The requirement to serve 5-year terms was hampered efforts to recruit judges. The Children's Law Center, which advocates for the rights of children in family court, is supportive of the change due to its potential to help with the recruiting of family court judges. I now yield to the ranking member for any comments that he might have on this specific legislation.
No comments at this time. Yield back.
If no other members wish to speak on the amendment, the question is now on the Towns amendment in the nature of a substitute. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposes? No. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature of a substitute is adopted. Are there any other amendments? The question is now on reporting H.R. 5367 as amended to the House. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 5367 as amended is ordered, reported favorably to the House. The committee will now consider H.R. 5702, which was introduced by Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton on July 1, 2010. H.R. 5702 reduces the time that a vacant seat will be left open in the District of Columbia Council. Under current law, the District Board of Election and Ethics must hold a special election to fill a vacancy on the Council within 114 days after the vacancy occurs. There have been periods in the history of the Council where District residents remain unrepresented for nearly 4 months at a time. The 114-day rule is currently part of the Home Rule Act, a Federal statute. This bill would reduce the gap in representation for citizens of the District of Columbia. I now yield to the gentleman from California for any comments he might have on 5702.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And once again, in the spirit of home rule, this is a decision for the people of the District of Columbia and their representatives. Since this is a consensus reduction that they have chosen, I fully support it. To be honest, Mr. Chairman, I would have supported their ability to rule make these sort of things without coming back to us. But for now, this is a good way to meet the current requirement. Look forward to broader legislation that would give these kinds of details normally done outside of our purview to the District of Columbia. But at this time, I support the bill and yield back.
Right. Thank you, gentleman from California. If no other members wish to speak, I now call up H.R. 5702. The clerk will read the title of the bill.
H.R. 5702, a bill to amend the District of Columbia Home Rule Act to reduce the waiting period.
I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered as read and open for amendments at any point. Without objection, so ordered. Are there any amendments? Hearing none, the question is on agreeing to H.R. 5702. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 5702 as amended is agreed to. Without objection, H.R. 5702 as amended is ordered, reported favorably to the House. The committee now considers H.R. 5368, the United States Postal Service Postal Inspector Equity Act. H.R. 5368 was introduced on May 24, 2010 by Representative Stephen Lynch. The bill would allow postal inspectors to receive full law enforcement availability pay comparable to criminal investigators of other executive branch agencies. Postal inspectors protect the United States Postal Service its employees and its customers from criminal attacks and protect the nation's mail system from criminal misuse. Under current law, compensations and benefits for postal inspectors are required to be comparable to other workers in the executive branch. Currently, the Postal Service is paying postal inspectors, but such payments are not required by statute. H.R. 5368 will require the Postal Service to pay postal inspectors LEAP by law, codifying current practice. The bill amends the Title V to define postal inspectors as law enforcement officers eligible to receive LEAP. H.R. 5368 will preserve and protect postal inspectors' law enforcement availability pay, ensure that the Postal Inspection Service will be able to recruit and retain highly qualified postal inspectors. I now yield to the gentleman from California for any comments that he might have.
I thank the gentleman, and I support the bill. I support recognition that law enforcement does not receive overtime pay, and yet they work long hours, often what anyone would consider to be on overtime. For most Americans, they are not even aware that there is a section of the workforce that doesn't receive overtime pay and yet truly are hourly workers. Law enforcement deserves to be treated as fairly as possible, even with the provision that overtime is not an ordinary term in their profession. LEAP is designed to guarantee comparative fairness in pay. This bill clarifies that in a statutory way. I support it. Yield back.
Any other members seeking recognition? If no other members wish to speak, I now call up H.R. 5368. The clerk will read the title of the bill.
H.R. 5368, a bill to amend Titles V
I ask
and
unanimous
39.
consent that the bill be considered as read and open for amendments at any point without objection, so ordered. I believe I have an amendment in the nature of a substitute at the desk. The clerk will designate the amendment, please.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5368, offered by Mr. Towns of New York. Strike all after the enacting clause and insert the following. Section 1, short title, this act may be cited
I ask unanimous consent that the amendment be considered as read and considered as base text without objection. The amendment is considered as read, and I recognize myself for a few minutes to speak on the amendment. My amendment applies the bill's provision to special agents of the Postal Service Office of the Inspector General. Like postal inspectors, these special agents are criminal investigators who have been receiving LEAP. The amendment would codify this practice. The amendment also adds language requesting that the Postal Service, making the bill provision retroactive. The amendment would make it clear that as law enforcement officers who have been receiving LEAP benefits, inspectors and special agents are not eligible for overtime pay under the Fair Labor Standards Act. This is consistent with the treatment of other Federal law enforcement officers. And, of course, finally, the amendment will change the short title to reflect the addition of special agents of the Inspector General to the bill. I now yield to the gentleman from California for any comments that he might have at this time.
I thank the Chairman, and this is a good technical correction. I might note that this bill has not been officially scored by CBO, but we do not anticipate receiving a score on this since the practice has already been to make these payments, and therefore support both the bill and the amendment and yield back.
Right. Thank you, gentleman from California. Do any other members wish to speak on the amendment? If no other members wish to speak on the amendment, the question is now on the Towns amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposers say no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to in the nature of a substitute, is adopted. Are there any other amendments, any further amendments? The question is on reporting H.R. 5368 as amended to the House. All those in favor say aye. All opposers say no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and H.R. 5368 as amended is ordered reported favorably to the House. Our final order of business is marking up post office. The clerk will designate the bill. I have a manager's amendment at the desk. Let me just make technical corrections to H.R. Res. 6118 and H.R. Res. 1494, and I ask unanimous consent that they be adopted and considered as base text. Will the clerk designate the amendment?
To H-Res?
The bills
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, we're considering them in block. Is that on block, right?
in block.
Yeah, thank you.
H-Res 1494, congratulating the champion, finalists, and other participants in the 83rd Annual Scripps National Spelling Bee.
Without objection.
H-Res 1529, commending Bob Shepard for his long and respected career as the public address announcer for the New York Yankees and the New York Giants. H-Res 1603, expressing support for designation of September 2010 as National Craniofacial Acceptance Month. H-Res 1617, supporting the goals and purpose of Gold Star Mother's Day, which is observed on the last Sunday in September of each year in remembrance of the supreme sacrifice made by mothers who lose a son or daughter serving in the armed forces. H.R. 4602, designating the facility of the United States Postal Service located at 1332 Sharon Copley Road in Sharon Center, Ohio, as the Emil Bolus Post Office. H.R. 6118, designating the facility of the United States Postal Service located at 2 Massachusetts Avenue Northeast in Washington, D.C. as the Dorothy I. Height Post Office Building. S. 3567, designating the facility of the United States Postal Service located at 100 Broadway in Lynbrook, New York as the Navy Corpsman Jeffrey L. Weiner Post Office Building. H.R. 6014, designating the facility of the United States Postal Service located at 212 Main Street in Hartman, Arkansas as the M.R. Bucky Walters Post Office. H-Res. 1442, supporting the goals and ideals of United States Military History Month. And H.R. 5877, designating the facility of the United States Postal Service located at 655 Center Street in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts as the Lance Corporal Alexander Scott Orodondo United States Marine Corps Post Office Building.
Having satisfied the committee's criteria, each of these measures are worthy of support, and I therefore urge their adoption. Does the ranking member have any comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, we reviewed the postal namings and commemorative resolutions before the committee today and find that they meet the standards of the committee. I would like to thank the Chairman for his work on H.R. 6118 and would yield the balance of my time to the gentleman from Tennessee, author of one of the bills.
Well, I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I simply want to say that I appreciate the Chairman taking up H.R. 1442, the resolution about a Military History Month. This has been submitted at the request of one of my constituents, great historian Ed Hooper, and it's often been said that a nation forgets its past at its peril, and certainly the military has played an extremely significant role in our history. This resolution creates a Military History Month and recognizes that important role, and I ask unanimous consent to place a statement in the record concerning that legislation. Thank you.
Without objections, so ordered. This concludes our business. That's California. I'm a gentleman from Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say a word about the Dorothy Height. First, I want to thank the committee for passing my other two bills while I was on my way here, and to say a word about the Dorothy Height naming bill. Dorothy Height was an icon of the movements for women's rights and civil rights. We are naming, or would like to name, and this bill is about naming the old Central Post Office near Union Station after Dorothy Height. I very much appreciate that the committee has considered this bill along with my other two bills before adjournment. I yield back and thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I ask that my statements for all three bills be entered into the record.
Without objection, so ordered. I ask unanimous consent that the measures previously designated and amended be reported favorably by the committee. Without objections, so ordered. We have one more bill to consider today, which we will take up at the conclusion of today's hearing. So we will now recess the business meeting and reconvene at the conclusion of the hearing. So we have a second panel that we'd like to call up.